Next to me is the new BMW M2, only this one has been heavily modified by my friends over at House of Power. In fact, it made so much horsepower that when I saw the dyno sheet, I hit them up and said I have to review this thing. Under the hood of the M2 is a 3-liter twin turbocharged inline-6 from the BMW M3 and M4. Now, in stock form, it makes tons of power, 453 horsepower and 406 pound-feet of torque. 2 transmission options available, 8-speed automatic or 6-speed manual. If you go with that 8-speed, despite being rear-wheel drive, it can sprint from 0 to 60 in just 3.6 seconds. Here's where things get crazy. House of Power added downpipes, drop-in filters, and an ECU tune. This thing is running on a hybrid of E85 and 91. The result is 720 horsepower at the wheels and 622 wheel torque. That's supercar killer numbers. With a curb weight of 3,800 pounds, factoring in 15% drivetrain loss, that's a better power to weight ratio than an SVJ or a 488. Now, before we hop in and drive the M2, let's talk about some of the updates and why this car is so polarizing, namely because of the looks and the curb weight. At 3,800 pounds, it's heavier than a last generation F80 M3, and it's 400 or 500 pounds more than a last gen M2 CS. A bit confusing considering it's not even all-wheel drive. Now, I'm not in love with the car's looks, but you do have to give BMW props for a couple of things. For one, they didn't put the giant waffle maker front grille from the M3 and M4. Everyone was complaining, and look, we've got a more normal looking grille. It also has massively flared fenders in the front and the rear, kind of reminiscent to the E46 M3. In fact, I know a lot of people are gonna be like, how could you possibly compare the two cars? But my friend is an E46, and my other friend has the new M2, and the front bumper design is actually very, very similar, as is the hood bulge and those front fenders. On the outside, the new M2 features BMW's 50th anniversary logo instead of the standard roundel, and I think it looks really nice. Options-wise, there aren't a bunch for the outside, 5 different color options, only 1 wheel style to choose from in 2 different finishes. You can get a optional carbon fiber roof, also some shadow line trim, but that's really about it. Around back, the M2 has, well, it's got a huge ass. It kind of looks like a Brazilian butt lift that went wrong, and you can't help but stare at it, even though there's something definitely off about it. That being said, I do love the aggressive rear diffuser and that quad exhaust, and considering it has downpipes, let's listen to what this thing sounds like. The interior of the M2 is dominated by this massive curved display that looks really high-end. With a base price of $63,000, the M2 isn't exactly cheap, but it feels premium in here. There's carbon fiber everywhere, there's leather everywhere, and this touchscreen is fantastic. The steering wheel is phenomenal. Nothing new, BMW makes great steering wheels. We've got paddles mounted behind for that 8-speed automatic gearbox that responds very, very quickly. We've got fully customizable M1 and M2 buttons. Those are shortcuts to set up the driving mode exactly the way you want. BMW has added this really cool little M stripe logo on the door. I love the way that looks, haven't seen it before in any other BMW, and really spruces up the interior. Now, talking more about the dash. Right now we are in normal mode. It's got this tachometer layout. Now, if we go to M mode right here, we can change all the way over to track. If we click track, activate track mode, that display will go completely black. And then check this out, we've got a totally different display for the tachometer and speedo. That looks awesome. We also have a 10-stage traction control. So if we go ahead and click DSC off, scroll down, DSC off, let's go to traction control. Now we can choose between 10 different stages of traction. That is a pretty cool level of customization. Now we also have another cool mode. Let's go back to DSC off, M Drift Analyzer, where that is actually going to analyze and give you a score based on how good you are at drifting. That is wild. All right, let's take this thing out for a drive. I'm gonna do something I never do, and that is start the driving portion of this review out in comfort mode to show you how good of a daily driver this M2 truly is. I've got the suspension in comfort mode, the throttle response, the engine, the exhaust, and despite the fact that it has 720 wheel horsepower, downpipes, a tune, in comfort mode, with the valves closed, it's perfectly quiet in here. You could drive this car every single day. The drivability isn't affected whatsoever. The suspension is surprisingly supple. Visibility is great as well. I will say it does feel like a bigger car than I was expecting. You feel every bit of that 3,800 pound curb weight. It's a bummer that BMW is making cars heavier and heavier, and I understand that people want luxury, they want space, and then they also want performance. It's a hard thing to combine all of those into one. But I feel like for the M2, they should have kept the curb weight in the low 3,000s to mid 3,000 pounds. 3,800 pounds, it's closing in on 4,000 pounds. I mean, that is four-door sedan level of weight. My E39 M5 back in 2001 was 3,900 pounds. That is a full-size M5 with a big V8 in it, effectively that weighs the same as their smallest, lightest, nimble sports car in 2023. Now, put the car into Sport Plus mode, and this thing is a full-fledged sports car. Wow. Now, it doesn't have the communication through the steering wheel like an E46 M3, nor does it through the suspension. But this is as good as it gets for modern day BMWs in terms of something that feels nimble and that's lively and fun to drive. So I gotta give BMW props for still sticking to its roots and making an enthusiast car that does have some compromises. I will say the front hood is a lot longer than I feel like it should be. It just creates a little bit of an awkward driving position. It almost feels like a long GT car, even though you're in this small little two-door sports car. The transmission is fantastic as always. Upshifts and downshifts happen nearly instantaneously. Despite being rear-wheel drive, it has a lot of mechanical grip and offers a lot of confidence behind the wheel. Surprisingly, I thought this car was going to be terrible in the canyons with 720 wheel horsepower, but the power is somewhat manageable as long as you aren't too much on the gas. Obviously, if you do stab the throttle and you have traction control off, which basically you need to have it off in order to let the car really run through its paces, it can get pretty dicey. This car comes from the factory on Pilot Sport 4Ss. Definitely at this power level, it would do better on R888s or Mickey Thompson, something of that nature. But I'm by no means complaining. The 4Ss are a great everyday tire and are perfect for the car in stock form. I mean, look, if you've got a BMW M2 and you want it to have supercar levels of power, I would take it to House of Power and let them know that I sent you, because you'll get a special vehicle virgins discount. But I think what we need to do now is take this thing out onto some straightaways and do some real legitimate pulls, because, well, this tight little twisty road is ridiculous for a 720 wheel horsepower M2. All right, let's try a first gear pull here. There's no way it's gonna get any traction, but we'll try it for the heck of it. Ready? Oh my God. Oh, that was spinning all the way into third. That was actually nuts. Holy crap, this thing is fast. All right, let's see if it hooks a second gear pull, 40 roll. Wow. Yeah, this thing's an absolute monster. Listen to the turbo blow off. Wow. I'm impressed. House of Power killed it. Oh my God. I mean, if you want your BMW M2 to be absolutely ridiculously fast, this is what you gotta do to it for sure. I'm honestly a bit underwhelmed with the handling of the car. Not as much feedback, and it's a little heavier than I was expecting, but I'm impressed with how comfortable it is, how good of a daily driver it is, and how ridiculous the modification potential is for this car. So if you're looking for a full-fledged sports car that just makes you feel alive every time you get in it, in stock form, the M2 absolutely isn't going to do that. But if you're looking for something you want to drive every day, that's also fun on the weekends, and that you can modify to kill supercars, well then I think this thing is the ticket. Let's do a couple more pulls because that is just way too fun, and then I'll let you guys go. Wow. The noises are epic. Wow. All right, guys. I look forward to seeing you next video.